The following podcast may be explicit. One Joe Young presents Adventures from the Shed, a tabletop RPG podcast. You can find us online at adventuresfromtheshed.com. Welcome to our second sidebar of the year at Adventures from the Shed. In this episode, we spend some time reviewing the adventure Chris ran, which you can find as AFTS DnD-CW1 and 2. We also talk backstory. Enjoy the podcast.
Hi, and welcome to the Shed for Adventures from the Shed. You can find us online at adventuresfromtheshed.com, on iTunes, Facebook, Stitcher Radio, Google+, Bing, all over the stinking place. We're going to do a special sidebar podcast here while we are finishing up our Strahd campaign. We've got everyone here, and we're going to go around the table and say hi quickly, starting with...
Hi, everyone. This is Mickie. That's it.
Hey, it's Kurt. Hey, it's Chris.
I'm Joe.
Hey, it's Jai Jai.
And we have Jai Jai. We're going to start this sidebar by talking a little about the adventure you just listened to over the last couple of weeks, which was one brought to us by the esteemed Chris W. And in that adventure, Chris put together something where people ate dirt, and we were told to eat dirt.
Yeah.
But I'm sure there was a little bit more to it than that. Chris, tell us a little bit about how you set that up.
I've been wanting for a while to use witches for some reason. I think because I recently watched the witch movie that came out last year, and it was one of those very eerie films with, it was kind of slow going, but the payoff at the end was really cool. So I just wanted to throw witches in there. You know,
So witches, okay.
Yeah, so I kind of wanted to get that piece going. And then you've played with some of my stuff, so I kind of wanted to have a little bit of a mystery going on.
Wow.
You played with my stuff. Yeah.
It wasn't a mystery, though.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, sorry.
So I kind of wanted something where, you know, there would be like reveals in here and there, and you couldn't trust, you know, what was going on.
Okay.
That type of thing.
So when you first put it together, you knew that we would be playing, was it level 5 D&D characters?
Right.
And you knew that there was going to be 4 of us. What kind of stuff went into preparing for that?
For me, I basically had like this little bit of an outline of kind of how the story was going to go, which is just a simple like rescue the damsel in distress kind of thing for a guy that you guys didn't really know that well. Okay. And then I would just see how it would play it out, and I had a map to use, and then I took like a theme from where that map was from, which was I think some monastery with something. And that storyline had something to do with like a coldness, and like the monk betrayed this woman, and that's why I kind of like used a little theme of that with the frozen, like the cold. Yeah, that was kind of like last minute type of thing. Even the same thing with the Ranger Galarian. I wasn't sure what I was going to do with him. I was just going to have him go the whole way, but then I kind of want to introduce that whole mystery of what's going on where you couldn't trust. Oh, that's not even Galarian in the first place. It's like something else.
I thought that was a pretty cool twist.
Yeah.
I enjoyed that.
Yeah.
So
And the nice thing about that adventure was you could definitely continue it or spin off from it.
Right. I kind of left it open where at the end, you know, the daughter that you rescued was, you know, corrupted by the witches, and she's now part of the coven, and she, you know.
But it's not even just that it had a cliffhanger or an open ending. There were probably 3 different hooks in that short adventure.
Right.
You got the guy who hired us. You could run a whole separate thing off of like what's his deal. Yeah. I mean, you could make a whole adventure off of him. You could do something with the daughter. You could do something with the shape-shifting.
Yes.
Yeah. So
Yeah,
it's
because
cool.
that guy who hired us had his own forces, but still chose us for some of the wet work. The stuff
because
that he
had to divulge
on.
information to the coven, and then his, you know, counterparts would have had him.
And we never really did figure out if he was the friend or the foe.
He was Willem Dafoe.
Willem Dafoe. Yeah. It was one of those things when I was creating the story, I'm like, do I want to, I kind of have to have it a little bit where you kind of know what's going on, but a little bit of mystery. And it was one of those things like, is anybody going to guess this? You know, and I remember explaining to my wife, she's like, that's pretty good. They won't guess. I'm like, I don't know, JJ might be able to pull something off.
Yeah.
You know? I was worried it's like, he's going to get this right from the start. It's going to be broken from the beginning, you know? But it worked out.
How long was it before we broke it?
No, I thought it was pretty good. It was,
cool.
it went along nicely, you know? I mean, I think it was weird. I think that was the first time I wrote something and I had to fit it into a time frame.
Okay.
Into these, you know, like, okay, about an hour-ish.
Yeah.
So that I had to, like, figure out where I wanted to, like, have the break. And that's where I put, like, the Dead Ranger. That's, like, the reveal at the end of that first episode, you know. So that was a little weird. And then keeping it, speeding up or slowing down combat, things like that. Because you guys could have fought for a lot longer to get out of there and, you know, dealt with the other children that were kidnapped, you know. But we kind of rushed it to the end.
That is definitely something that I think Joe and I could definitely attest to. Maybe even Kurt with the Pathfinder. It's trying to find those natural breaks that just work. And like with D&D, typically, it's typically a marathon session, 4 to 5 hours, and random people get up at random times to go do their thing, and that's not the case at all with us. We are very regimented. One of our special guests, Josh, even commented about how just exceedingly efficient we are when we sit down to record and
we
play.
think we're horrible, but yes, we do a pretty darn good job. Yeah.
Compared
so
to
that
a
was
regular
that was like the weird thing and try to fit it in, like I gotta because even if you're thinking like we're gonna do an episode and I'll have the beginning and the end, well, I don't know if it's gonna go like that. You guys are gonna move it around, so I might have to slow something up or speed it up, slow it down, whatever. So that was kind of weird for me.
Yeah,
fitting that in.
You know what?
Go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
How do you gauge the amount of time that it's going to take for an encounter or a portion of a story?
That's a very good question.
Like, how do you do that?
Yeah.
I don't know. I was trying to think. I would do it like, all right, for going 1 hour episodes. All right, so I might want like some informational things, like role playing piece, and then maybe one action moment. And you could, like a combat, just a couple guys. Like I had those bandits attack you, like will come in and start trouble. No combat happened, but it could have, and it would have been fine.
But we turned it into a social role playing thing.
So that first episode was a little shorter, but not too bad. If we would have had combat, we might have been right at the hour. It would have been fine. So I kind of threw in there could be combat. It doesn't have to be, but we let it roll out, and you guys, you didn't fight, which was cool though. Because I was trying to edge you guys on to start a fight, and it didn't happen.
Well, I think another trick is there are probably natural stopping points. So for example, getting to the bottom of the stairs with the big monster, you could stop there. But let's say we look at the clock and it's 50 minutes.
Oh yeah.
And you're like, well, I wanted to stop there right as they're staring up at this monastery in the cliffs, and that's a great place to stop. But if you got 10 minutes left, you can go in. Yeah. You can do 5 to 10 minutes of kind of quote unquote boring explanation,
right?
And then you just throw in a reveal of something that they see. Maybe it's a statue that's particularly exciting, or you can make you got to come up with those quick hooks that you can just throw in to be an ending point.
This was that turning the body of Galarian over. Oh my God, it's Galarian. Who's this guy that led us here?
Exactly,
right.
exactly.
So I had to have that at the end of that.
Being able to throw that kind of thing in, it doesn't necessarily have to be that you just ended a combat or you just finished a role play.
Right.
What I was going to say, what I love about the D&D starter set, and I thought your adventure worked with it nicely as well, is that it does a great job of not falling into the trap that a lot of us do when we homebrew adventures, where if you start with level 1 or level 2 characters, there's a natural inclination to throw too much at the players too early because you want it to be exciting.
Yes.
And so like they see a dragon at the end of their first adventure, like an adult dragon or some huge, and the starter set does a great job of, at level 1 you fight some goblins and then I think you see the orc with his wolves or whatever. And eventually there's a wizard, but it's a very reasonable encounter and this one was the same way.
Hold on.
Sorry, hang on.
It's the audio thing. Hold on. We just need a few seconds. It will clear up like that. And continue.
Okay. Your adventure fit nicely as well, where there was challenge and the witches were scary, and then you've got the rock golem or the rock elemental at the end. But we knew enough to hightail it.
Right.
Out of there.
That was like not that I railroaded, but forced you like this guy's going to be a pain in the ass. It's better just to get out.
When I think about making adventures, that's one of the challenges is throwing too high a level enemies at low level adventurers just to make it more exciting, and that's not really the way to do it.
Gotcha.
It's an equation, right?
Like with back to your question with how do you do that? One way I've been doing it with Strahd campaign outside of our episodes is I've been telling the players I expect you to do X, Y, and Z during this episode, and so while it is a form of metagaming. And I feel like if we were not recording, I would definitely not do that. I would do nothing to lead you guys on. But within the context of producing a podcast and keeping it entertaining, I feel that that's needed.
You don't think that a regular tabletop game would benefit from that? Maybe not to the extent that you do for our podcast, but maybe just an overarching statement before we sit down and roll and say, today we are going to encounter A, B, and C.
It can be useful, definitely.
Like a high level?
If you've got a group that is willing to go along with that, or even wants to, there are some groups that just don't want to turn over every leaf and look in every corner and check for every square for traps and what's at this door and what's at that door. Some just want to know where the important thing is.
Yep.
And leading in that direction if it's the right group, yeah. But if you have a completionist group or somebody that's really going to take offense to the idea of I can't explore on my own, it's more of a judgment call.
Well, and that's totally a group call because some groups hate the idea of being railroaded in any way. You know, they basically want a sandbox, and others want a much more linear game because they don't want to waste time on stuff that's not exciting.
Exactly.
And I think we're a combination, and certainly for recording purposes, we try not to meander too much.
Well, see, typically when I played D&D before, note passing between players and DMs is a huge thing, but that does not work in this context, in the context of what we're trying to do here. So we are definitely not a traditional D&D group.
No. I do like, though, I personally don't like very much being told, like, you've got to do this, this, and this. But I do like, if we're in a room where there's not going to be anything exciting, essentially the DM doing, some type of symbol in the air, like just keep going. Because there's nothing, wasting 10 minutes to not find anything while we all make perception and investigation checks is boring.
So in what you put together, Chris, were there any spots where you wanted to push us along, or were we?
No, I think it went well. I mean, I will let. I find that, like, because I'm doing the podcast, I didn't let you guys meander as much in the room. That might have been, another. If I wasn't doing a pod, go ahead and take your time and see where it plays out. But with that, I didn't have to push you guys along too bad, though. It worked out. It was nice. Well,
and if I remember correctly, your adventure did have one of those points that happens to me all the time, and it was with the bandits, where, I was trying to figure out, like, can we just social role play this, or is this have to be a combat? And it was kind of like, we're asking questions and we're talking, and they're being difficult and not answering.
Right. Well,
and I'm kind of like, am I missing something here?
No, that's how I wanted it to be. I wanted it to be like these guys are kind of almost looking for pay or revenge for the guys getting killed, and they're blaming it on whoever they can, and you guys weren't falling into that.
We're teetering on the edge of initiative.
Yeah, and so they were being dicks to try to force it, but it didn't have to, and then they kind of, all right, we're okay with these guys, and then they kind of like divulged some information for you, it worked out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So how do you deal with when the players decide to just go a totally different direction?
In the context of that adventure,
and
I mean, that one I kind of gave you here's your starting point, here's your ending point, rescue this girl, and by any means necessary, and like here's the information you have to go here. So I kind of here's the boundaries, I kind of like they were very like well stated instead of like wide open.
But we
so that
also,
was easy.
Towards the end, we also kind of, I think we started to ruffle at the end where we wanted to go back and kill the Earth Elemental. We wanted to go get those kids out of the room that we had locked up. But I don't know how long we spent on that, 5-10 minutes maybe. We're talking about it. And at one point, you're like, look, you're not going to kill the Earth Elemental. You can come back for the kids, whatever. You guys need to leave, right? Essentially, you're telling us,
it's more of those things.
Well,
your mission is retrieve the girl and get her back, as fast as you can. So you did, you did. That was the job. But I would have. The thing was, we were running out of time, and we could have went to another episode and did that. You know? That would have been fine. But
so what I mean, I guess, is what if the players like completely throw a monkey wrench? Like, what if we had decided to go over to the next village, find a girl, burn her alive, and then bring back the charred remains of found your daughter? Sorry.
Right. Hold on, we didn't. Am I remembering?
This is why I attached the NPC Galarian to kind of like keep everything in check.
He's the guide. Yeah.
Right. I could see that happening. I mean, I thought about. Sorry,
but for the group to do that, I mean, that's pretty hardcore.
Well, I thought about wanting to tail the guy who hired us and like forget about his mission, figure out what his deal was,
right?
And then that could have been an episode. It wasn't Fandelver where we were in, but whatever the town we were in is
Lemoore.
Lemoore. It could have been more of a social thing, but Then the DM would be like, "Screw you, dude."
Kill us all.
What did you remember about it that you liked?
I liked.
Or didn't like.
I liked the twist with Galarian. I think that could have been. We could have spent like several episodes just investigating that angle of things.
I would have wanted to trace his tracks back.
Well, it's weird because I have a lot of backstory to why things were. You guys will never know unless we play again and it comes to the light. But I always have something set up so like things will make sense, even though the characters might know right off the bat.
Yeah. Seems like there's lots of little little strings that we could have pulled on along the way, even in the monastery.
Oh yeah,
all those bodies.
Yeah, there's tons of stuff.
We never got to the bottom of that.
Well, JJ and I were talking. I've been reading the Wizards of the Coast Curse of Strahd book, and I'm avoiding anything that would relate to the ending because I don't want it to be ruined. But I've been going back and reading the rest of the adventure, and there's all kind of stuff that JJ brought in. Something that there's much more backstory in the adventure, like a lot more that to us is just like, oh, like for example, we got a little better hint on it, but the saber-tooth tiger attack, for example, or I think maybe at one point we saw the wagon. That like there's all this kind of stuff in the story that we'll never know.
Right. Yep.
But it's
Like
good.
I even mentioned the at one point I mentioned the guy out in the lake. He's on a boat.
Right.
And the backstory to that is he's literally got a child bound and about to drown them. And you guys never investigated,
Right.
so we never came across it. Like,
Interesting.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a lot of stuff.
Well, no,
there's a
that's
lot of
interesting.
stuff. Like
we never-
I give you the threads. If you grab it, cool.
Right.
If not, we're moving on.
Yeah,
Like there's some
right.
major characters that we have not even met and probably won't ever meet.
Exactly.
But if it's something that's pivotal,
If it's
couldn't
something
you just
pivotal, you
reintroduce
have
them
to
later?
have it.
Well, you could just reintroduce it, right? So even if the players don't go down that particular path, then all of a sudden, let's say that your example, the guy in the middle of the lake was important. Well, we run into him later on. We recognize him from the lake, and then that's how you reintroduce that.
His
right?
name is Pickle Dingle.
He shows us his dingle.
He does. It tells
And
us
it's a
we should
fuzzy
go get
pickle.
it.
It's all
Yeah.
pickly.
Dingy.
But yeah, no, it's
So how many NPCs did you prepare and to what level of detail? You've already said you had a bunch of stuff behind the scenes, but give
I
us,
think really
give us
there's
some
just a-
insight into that.
I would say like 4 main NPCs. We had, Tyneman who hired you, who you kind of work for, then his friend William Fenrick, and then the daughter Thomason, and then Galarian, the ranger that kind of guided you, and then the bandits are kind of on their own, I guess, but they're early NPCs. But
So how much do you write down and how much is just in your head?
Everybody had a couple lines, of just information. I had like a back history between, of why, what really happened to Willem's wife, the whole mysterious accident and what happened there and why Thomas ends up killing him towards the end, So I have that backstory that's available.
And do you have like organizations for them in the town?
I
and how they
had
interrelate?
very little bit, because I still don't, he says he's a guild master or what? Well, it could be the Thieves Guild or the Assassins Guild or both. I didn't know. It didn't really matter right now for that. Just like this guy has, he's a businessman, quote unquote, but he has, connections with all these other organizations. So you're not really sure what that guy's up to. But, it's something that could come to play later, but it wasn't important for the story.
Now, I do have a question for you. Have you ever had a player group decide to just become uncomfortably attached to a NPC that you now have to make an integral part of your campaign? Like, case in point, the one that I can remember is a group I was playing with became obsessed with this Chuck Norris type paladin whose sacred weapon was his fist. And like he always fist bumped people. He never hand shook. But whenever you fist bump, there's a chance he was going to break your hand because he's the Chuck Norris paladin.
Right.
So like the group became just ridiculously attached to him. Like, do you then use him as a plot hook?
Yeah, I've done that with people. I've run on most of the stuff in the Greyhawk campaign, so I use all those people from Greyhawk, like the Lord Mayor, and he's running an organization. They kind of work for him, so I have all those people in Greyhawk that people come to rely on for certain things, and they're in the story a lot. But I'm not afraid to pull a Joss Whedon or George R. Martin and waste important characters. So people get and the players. I have players be literally bummed out, like, oh my god, it's such a cool character, and you killed them.
Yeah.
That's right, because bad stuff happens. So but that you have to build that character up, that NPC up. Like, man, people love him, and then you take him away, and people are bummed out about it.
That sucks, man.
I was very attached to a young NPC once named
Wylena? The one that you threw in a pit?
Yeah.
Oh, no, wait,
Too attached then?
you dropped the wagon on her?
Yeah. She's still around.
Is that what it's called? These
She's
days?
singing my tale.
She's
She's a great
kinda-
bard that she is.
It's kind of recovering
a
from
little-
all the broken bones.
A little
but-
PTSD every once in a while.
Yeah.
Every time she goes near a wagon.
Yeah, exactly. So, Mickie, what else did you think about that adventure. Or, I mean, we can talk about the characters we revisited, too. I had a new one.
Well, that was always fun.
Yeah.
It's always fun to revisit old characters, right? Because they take on their own little personality as you go through a campaign. And I played Bree in that one, right?
Yep.
Bree Greenbottle from the opening,
Yeah.
from the starter set. And she turned out just to be, she was a halfling with a giant chip on her shoulder. She always wanted to, kind of like every character I play, really.
Yeah. They're not all halflings, though.
They're not all halflings,
No.
but they all seem to have a problem,
Yeah.
especially with his characters.
Well, yeah. Regardless of what
Regardless of what they are. Whatever he plays,
I never
hate.
do anything wrong. It's
No,
just
everything you
that's the
play,
way
I
it
hate.
works.
That's how it works.
and so everyone assumes. I assume that everyone listening, anyways, assumes that we have some kind of really dysfunctional marriage.
No.
but it's really not. She's fairly meek at home, and it's nice.
Meek, fuck you. Meek,
They get to make up after each session.
fuck you. Meek, my ass.
Was it
Actually-
different to play, like, run these characters through this different type? This is more like a horror-based, like, kind of module and the creepiness factor, as opposed to, like, the standard starter set adventure, you know?
Yeah, it is difficult to do that. It's difficult to kind of moderate your reaction to the world you're playing in, right? That I had a hard time at the beginning. When we switched Bree from the situation that she was in the starter set to this, it was kind of hard to find her footing. But after a while, you kind of just rediscover who the character is and their motivations.
Right.
All deep and shit.
I actually have a question for the group to take it away from the campaign, the little short campaign we just ran, but back to the Strahd. We've talked about it, but we haven't really actually done anything with it. But what are the backstories of our characters? Like, we kind of sort of glossed over it in exchange for telling the story of the book. But I think this should be an opening to, was Calvin, was he, orphaned as a child and, was taken in by a Palor temple? Like, what is the backstory to Calvin, to Mr. Joshua, to Teelan and Noctra?
I think for Calvin, he heard the calling one day. Had no bad childhood, nothing really. Just completely normal back end story. And one day he was just out, and the light hit him. Right, he's passing by the right church at the right time, and maybe walking by the front of the church. The sunlight glared off of one of the stained glass windows, caught him in the eye, and he turned towards the church, and it was just bathed in a halo of burnt retina, and he was just taken by Palor at that time.
So he has permanent sunspots.
For the most part, yeah. I mean,
Okay.
if you're following Palor, you've got to have something like that.
You're constantly staring into the light.
It's got to make sense, right?
He's blind.
But definitely probably spent some time in there, found the right leader within the church to show him the right way to go about finding the light. Remember, it's go to the light of Palor, not just go Palor. I mean, come on, everyone knows this now, at least ever since I made it up. And that would be where he started. And then from there, realizing he could take that word out and beat up people who didn't agree with it.
Fair enough.
Essentially, the bad guys, not the good people who didn't.
So
agree, 'cause they
Calvin
could
took
be-
proselytizing to another level.
Oh gosh, yeah, it's a door-to-door salesman for Palor.
Right, Mr. Joshua. What's do we have a little bit of his backstory?
I don't really have much because when I came into the
We kind of
group,
just threw you in there.
Yeah, I was like, is this guy going to just last, couple episodes and
Yeah.
bite it? Is he a red shirt? So I didn't really think back. But I mean, I know, he's got the whole Order of the Feather and he's like the spy master. And really for him, it's just like, he's tired of what's going on and he wants to change the world because Barovia's horrible and he's tired of this curse that's over the land. And he wants to do whatever it takes to change that. That's why you saw him like protect, I can't remember the wife's name, Dimitri's wife, I think it was. I can't remember. her name.
Erwin? No.
Yeah.
Lady,
Yeah, I'm trying to remember.
Mrs. What's-Her-Face.
Anna. That's what
Anna,
it was.
yep.
Anna, yeah. Where he wants to protect the innocent. That's his thing, and he's just tired of like innocent people getting hurt, and he's tired of like Strahd shit. So he'll do whatever it takes.
Including turning into a crow.
Well, that's
A raven. Sorry, raven. I said
yeah.
crow. Wow.
Gosh. So make him eat. Make you
crow.
eat crow.
Make me eat raven.
what?
Crow.
Tastes like chicken anyway.
Go Palor.
So about Teelan, we never really did delve into his backstory much.
He has a book.
He's a book. No one
He
ever
has a
asks.
book. Yeah.
No. So I don't have a super developed backstory for him, but when I created the character, I used the Haunted One background, which was one of the backgrounds that came out specifically for the Curse of Strahd adventure to try to that you could use to give the characters more of a kind of a horror or a gothic horror background. And so to some degree, I rolled on the D&D books. They give you a table and you can roll. If I didn't like it, then I picked the one I liked. But the main idea for him was that he had a harrowing event in his past, and so the way that was written is I opened an Eldritch tome and saw things unfit for a sane mind. I burned the book, but its words and images are burned into my psyche, and so I used that kind of as a teenager.
That sounds like the beginning of a warlock.
Well, it's interesting. So his parents were spellcasters. It was my idea. So they had books and a library, and basically my thought was that I had been looking at something I shouldn't have been looking at.
Okay.
As probably like a 16 or 17-year-old in the house, and saw like not just something I shouldn't have seen, but something that like truly psychically scarred me and made me realize how much true evil there was in the world. And so that leads to my ideal, which is I kill monsters to make the world a safer place and to exorcise my demons. But also it says my torment, or a bond is that my torment drove away the person I love. I strive to win back the love I've lost. But instead of that being a girl or a romantic interest, it's my father.
Okay.
Because this basically put a wedge between us because of what I had seen and how I basically kind of destroyed my... and so... The idea there is also that part of that, my sorcerer wild magic stuff, is because I know that that's supposed to be innate, but I'm screwed up, so I don't have total control over my magic. Like
Fair enough.
Couldn't go and study to be a wizard, for example, the way that
Wizard.
might.
You're
It
not
was
a
just
wizard.
easier to harness magic than it was to study magic.
Yes, but then the trinket that I have, which I tried to bring up a few times and never went anywhere, but there's a trinket on the table in the haunted one that I loved, which was I have a little black book that records my dreams and mine alone when I sleep. The idea you wake up every morning and have a new page in this little black book that records what you dreamt about the night before.
That's pretty cool.
Which could be really fun, especially if you coordinated with the DM a little bit.
Yeah.
You could have foreshadowing or metaphorical dreams that would relate to what's going on in the adventure and the party. Yeah. So none of that has come out very well, but that's kind of in my mind in the background. It does two things. One, it explains his kind of moody, quiet, melancholy state. And two, I tend to want to play diplomatic. Talking combat is a last option. And with Teelan, I need to remember, like, no, he sees monsters, he kills monsters. Like, he doesn't try to talk to the mummy, he just kills the mummy. Or whatever.
Yeah.
The mummy.
Yeah.
What about Noctra?
Noctra, her backstory's a bit tragic. She had the perfect life. She lived in a small village outside. The count that oversaw that village was very good to his people. Her father was like the count's right-hand person. It was very jovial guy, always joking, which is why she had those one-liners at the beginning. It's her way of connecting with her father.
I miss those.
Yeah, that's on Mickie for not preparing.
Yeah.
But, she had the perfect life. She married the guy next door, had a child with him. They were very, very happy.
I didn't know she had a kid.
She did. She had a child.
Interesting.
She was very happy. One day she went off to the neighboring village to go shopping to bring, it was a birthday was coming up, so she went to get a gift, and when she came back, her village was decimated. Like, think of that scene in Milan when everything was burned when the Hun went through. Everything was burned to the ground, and she looked around, and her family was all killed by vampires. And from the looks of it, they just did it for sport. There was no reason for it. They just killed because they wanted to. So she single-handedly, by herself, piled all the bodies in the center of town, lit them on fire, and as she was going to throw herself on that pyre, the Raven Queen appeared before her and said, if you want to avenge your family, I will give you the chance. Praise me, devote your life to me, and I will give you the skills that you need to rid this world of the monsters that killed your family. So she dedicated her life to that since then.
So that's why she kicks ass.
That's why she kicks ass.
What happened to her child?
Killed by the vampires.
So,
that was the last body.
Like killed, not is a vampire somewhere,
No,
maybe?
because
that would be a neat twist.
They killed them all for sport.
So this raises a good
Yeah,
question.
That would have been cool, right?
Yeah.
She faces her
It's
kid.
just flat out, you got the death certificate, everything.
Yeah.
Sorry, that's me. Playing footsies with Joe under the
That's
table.
all right.
So how do you, sometimes I feel like the backstory comes out more than others. Like, I don't know. Maybe it's because of we've been really driving the plot along with Strahd, and we're conscious
Yeah.
of the time. And there's so much to do, but like, how does that come out in a way that's natural and not forced? Short of like, well, we're sitting around the campfire one night. Tell me.
No, definitely
tell me about
company
your
picnic.
backstory.
Definitely company picnic. Yeah.
Team building activities.
Yeah.
That's a good question. How do you do it? I mean, short of just running
So
into
here,
things.
let me tell you my opinion. At least it's never natural. It's always forced. It has to be forced because it's not your backstory. It's your characters. You have to force it in somewhere. And part of the stuff I do with Calvin of remember that time, or I used to do a whatever, that kind of thing is just forcing a little tidbit in here or there.
I mean,
but it's more for me the idea of why is the character here now and what motivates him. Hopefully that leads to what the backstory was. So to what JJ was saying about Calvin to begin with, was it something that got him into this? And yes, it was, but it wasn't anything as dramatic as what that thought might have been. But clearly the way I try and play it is the way I play the character is, something made him go this route. Whether you know what it is or not, you know that there's something driving him forward in that respect. So that's part of it, and you've got to force that in. There, in my opinion, there's no natural way for character backstory to come in unless you just say what your backstory is as part of a here's what everyone's backstory session is. Because it doesn't fit.
I think you said it before in one of our other sidebars. Is everyone has a secret backstory until they volunteer the information.
Everything. Yeah. One of my favorite things, and I'm sure I've said it in our podcast before, especially in a sidebar, but I read, I don't know, maybe 10, 12 years ago, somebody's blog somewhere on the internet, so I wish I could give this person credit, but it was an eye-opener for me when I first read it. Unlike the real world, where we can look around and everything is visible until you search for something, on our RPG, it's exactly the opposite. Everything is invisible until someone says it. So if you didn't say it, it never happened. If you didn't say it, it's not there. Somebody has to say it, or it doesn't exist.
Yep.
Because you can't do it by visual reference alone. And that's a key thing. If you don't say, my character's brooding in a corner reading in his book, nobody's ever going to even know that you have it. Right. Forget about it, regardless of where it may be written down or our own references to it, right?
Right. That's a good point.
So you're saying we as characters need to do a better job of it?
If you want it to be known, you have to say it.
Yep.
It won't be known unless you say it.
You have to volunteer the information.
Yeah, it's just like when we walk into a room and we want to know what the room looks like, we make assumptions in our head. Like if JJ is telling us that there's a blazing hearth, then we can all assume that there's a fire in a fireplace. But did we just make the picture as well that there's a portrait over the fireplace, or do we need him to tell us, or is there that the poker is polished and next to the fireplace? If he didn't say that, then we're saying, well, there's a fireplace, and that's it. So as you read out the description, then you get to hear more about it. And in the meantime, we're putting pictures together in our heads. I'm hearing him say things like, this is a really clean room. In other places, there's been the talk of the red drapes and golden tassels and stuff. So I'm picturing this place as being really regal, like a study that Kurt said. So I've got this whole picture in my head based off of what he read. And if he had read something slightly different, then I build a different picture. But in the meantime, if I don't say, there's a really nice chair in the corner, if he doesn't say it, then nobody else even knows it. I'm just imagining this crap. So we've got to say it out loud for it to actually happen.
Yeah. And I have two thoughts. I mean, one, I would say it's worth, at least I think for most people, it'd be worth making the effort to push the backstory in. Because as I've said, I have not felt as connected to this character. Even though I like the adventure, I'm enjoying it, I haven't felt as emotionally connected to Thielen. And I think that's because by my not pushing some of his backstory and motivations out there, he's really, to be honest, a fairly generic sorcerer walking around doing this adventure and having fun, but I don't feel as connected to him as I do to Truk, for example.
Yeah.
But then thinking about Truk, the other thing is some of his backstory came out, I think, more naturally because we had interactions with him at his monastery and with his sensei and stuff, whereas in this adventure, we're transported completely out of our element into a totally new foreign world. So you have to make even more of an effort to push your backstory in if you want it to come out.
Yep.
Which, and maybe some people don't. Maybe they're like, hey, this is a chance to be in a totally new world, play a new character, and just go do the adventure. That's cool. But if you want that role play attachment to your character, I think Joe and JJ are exactly right that you have to force it in.
But I think one of the things that you've done, just to point out something I think you've done well is regardless of how you word it, whether it's story-based or whatever, when Kurt actually says things like, he's a monster hunter, so he's going to do this, it's keeping true to that. Now you're stating motivation and why your character's doing something right now. But and maybe it's not as poetic as trying to get into the game with it, but whether it's metagamey or not, it is saying this is the motivation of my character right now, which to me lends itself to again, picturing in my mind, when Teelan sees the mummy, then there's that spark in his eye. This is a monster. This is something that needs to be disposed
a new challenge.
This is my new target. And I think of it as where Teelan may not be really focused on stuff normally. When he sees the monster, there's this laser focus. And when you say something like, well, he's a monster hunter, this thing. So in my head, I get that picture. Cool.
So what advice would you have, or what kind of tips would you have for players who maybe are a bit more shy and aren't as outgoing? What tips do you have for them to bring their characters in and their backstory?
It might depend on, like, for example, like one of my bonds is like protect people that can't protect themselves. So in that one episode, I'm even though I made my save right, I'm not going to take any damage from that fireball. You know what? I have this innocent woman here. I'm going to take the hit for it. And it's something, that little action shows that guy's character, you know. Mm-hmm. And it's just one line. It's not a lot, but it goes, man, he could have easily not taken any damage. He was safe.
Well,
but no, he took that huge hit, protect somebody he barely knows. But she's an innocent, you know, and that's part of the character. Like that shows you, wow, Mr. Joshua's he didn't have to do that. He doesn't even know these people, you know, but he did anyway. Right. So it shows a little bit. You don't have to go extravagant, you know. It'd be just something small, actions like that could show a part of the character.
Yeah, and we don't want to talk about it because it won't be released yet. But in the episode we just recorded, you do something for a party member, but still that's very selfless and it's very consistent with the way that you have played Joshua all along. So it feels natural, which is great.
To that point, consistency. Mm-hmm. Pick what you want your character to be like and stick with it.
Yeah, I also think
before we even started, and I said Calvin is going to be a proselytizing cleric, I hadn't even picked a deity or anything yet. Like, well, I knew what I wanted. That's what I was going to do. Everybody he sees, have you heard of Paylor? Yeah. Do you know who Paylor is?
You got that door-to-door salesman, like you said.
We've got to do
his
it.
attitude. You know, that's good.
Yeah. I do think if you have shy or more reserved players at the table, it's incumbent on the other people at the table to make an effort in character to draw their character out.
Well, there can also be a way, too, where the DM can set it up where they could use whatever piece they want to bring forth. The DM could set up, do a setup, and then they could play it out.
There's always a spotlight.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, I mean, JJ's talked about that a lot on other sidebars, and maybe Joe as well, the idea of shifting the spotlight on to different characters, which I think is a great one because not everyone can be the center of attention every episode. Right. And some people don't want to be the center of attention very often, but I still think it's important if they're going to show up that their character gets spotlighted and that they take the lead at some point.
I like the idea of pushing Noctra forward now that Calvin knows her as a person who kicks doors down. So if there's a door,
it's going to get
kicked. Here, check it out. Now, we've now learned that Mr. Joshua can hear as well, so let him listen before you kick the door in. But
what will be applied to
those
door?
Those boots are made for kicking. Right. That's right. So that's one way, to Kurt's point, if other players help encourage. Not that Mickey's shy, but but the idea that Calvin now has a thing with Noctra to be able to, you do it, because I'm already here. I'll be, Calvin's right there. He'll help you with the Shield of Faith. He'll help you with the warding bomb, whatever. You'll get the healing after you kick that door in, okay? So it's a shtick, but for me, that's the stuff that sticks with a character. You remember the character for something they did or for something they said. You don't remember them necessarily for any backstory.
Yeah, I mean, you think back to all of our memorable characters. There was Saunders. There was
you remember
Strong Don with his damn incense.
Yes.
And Curry.
Curry. Yes.
And Curry.
We even had fan mail about the curry. Yes.
You got to kind of pick something and just take it to the absurd.
Yeah.
Right, yeah. So you're almost overacting that one piece of the character, right, to make it stand up.
Shoot him in the knee.
Shoot him in the knee. That's
shoot
great.
Him in the knee.
Shoot first, ask questions later. Yeah. It's like how I play everything. And then to your point earlier, for those more shy characters, maybe everyone else at the table. So, like, for example, Mr. Joshua, and just taking the damage for that innocent, that could turn into a conversation after the battle, Hey, Mr. Joshua, what happened there? Why'd you do that?
Oh, right.
that's another opportunity to inject more role play.
Right,
into
yeah, or
RPG.
even like you say about his whole monster killing thing, which we haven't got to yet, where maybe we want to interrogate this monster and he just pushes us out of the way and like wants to kill it, and we're trying to hold him back.
Yeah.
Why are you like this? What,
Break the staff.
What
with
did you
power
do?
to
That brings
attack.
it up. What happened to you? Yeah,
Right.
he could kind of like it was, like,
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean the players have to volunteer that information.
Yeah.
Like
Has to be, yeah. But I would say for shy people, the people at the table work with them, even if it's just one-on-one, because a lot of times the shy people don't want a whole group telling them what to do.
Yeah.
But even if it's just one-on-one, pick something about this character that you really like. Maybe it's a piece of equipment. Maybe they've got the great axe that has runes on it from an ancient civilization or something. Just talk about that. Every time you go to swing at something, the runes glow, or I grab the handle of this huge axe or whatever
yeah,
it is.
didn't Mike have a sword or a great sword?
Yeah, he
Yeah.
named it. This first
Frederica?
No,
Sir that was my plan.
That was your plan.
Yes, Sir Walter Moss had a name
Yes.
for his battle axe for that
Can't
starter
remember
set
what it
character.
You did.
But yeah, that kind of thing.
Yeah,
And,
that kind of
yeah.
thing.
Come
That
up
could
with that
actually
one thing and say it.
that could actually be a fun way to start a campaign, right? So everyone
Yes.
get around the table and start just building your characters, right? What's unique about your character that
Yeah.
you want to inject?
And honestly, I think my favorite campaign where that really came out was the Fly by the Seat of Your Pants campaign that Joe did, the Miami Vice
came
one.
from scratch,
Like we
yeah.
all basically found a shtick and
Yeah.
then stuck to it.
Right. Well, I love
Although
backstory.
Kurt had that great double agent thing at the end. That was nice.
I
That was
did.
a hell of a
Secret
twist. I wasn't
agent
expecting
man.
it. It was nice.
I wasn't either.
Yeah, but it was nice. It just came out of nowhere.
I have a backstory I wrote for a character for a campaign that I think we got an hour done and then aborted, but I could see like it being a book. Like I have such a great idea for this character that if I were to write a fantasy novel, like it's going to be that. And then the other one, backstory did not come out at all just because of the nature of what we were doing. But the Cthulhu one that we did, I had a ton of fun writing, a page for each one of those characters and making sure that every one of them had a link to the other one
That
because
was
I wanted
really
you
good
to be able to
stuff.
sit down and have a sense right off why this party was together. And not a word of it came out in the play, but I still have really enjoyed doing that.
But that helped us as players
Yes.
play the game
Right.
because as we came across, I remember there was a situation where it was like my brother went in, so I'm like, that's my brother. I'm going in after him. Even if my character ended up dying, I was going down that road.
That's good stuff. Those types of backstories that just give a player some information to work with, that's key. And yeah, it's effort, but it's fun to do. Like you said, Kurt, you were able to write up a bunch of stuff that it took some time. I think you had said when you showed it to your wife, she said, this should be a book or a movie or something like that. And that means you did something good because it intrigues somebody who's not even interested in what we do, right? It's a
Well, it's
nice
like
thing.
you just said, you created a backstory for one character and you only played it for an hour. That doesn't mean that character's dead. It can come back at any time.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Noctra is in a previous campaign. Thea, she also was in a previous campaign.
Nessalus would need reincarnation.
And actually,
of
this
some
one,
kind.
I need to bring out Selena next time.
Yeah, this one would be. I would bring
I
back because it's a
remember that
bard, and I've
name.
never played a bard. And
Yeah.
part of the problem is that I think I would want a dungeon master for him because he's got a tie to a sibling, and I'd want the sibling to like end up in the story. But that's neither here nor there.
But
Next
that's
campaign.
good stuff. That actually brings up another topic. Your backstory should become part of the campaign. Now, when we've done our Dungeon World campaigns, I force that. I make sure that whatever we've written, it turns into part of the campaign in some way or another. And that's almost impossible to do with a pre-published adventure.
Yep.
However, if you're going to play Sandbox, I encourage everybody to write something that you want to show up in the game. And then tell the DM, I want this to show up in the game. Because if you don't, again, wasted words. It can give you a feel for your character, but it doesn't help the system or the actual campaign world. But that's a big thing. When you say something like that maybe your bard has a link to a brother, well, that's several days of adventure right there. Your brother got kidnapped by somebody, or you're the one who's lost and your brother's trying to find you. Right? There's so many different ways that you can approach it. But it takes the piece that you're talking about and turns it into what you wanted, that you have that link, and now everyone can play in that adventure as well.
Cool.
What else you want to talk about? I think I'm actually going to name this one Banter and Backstory.
That sounds good.
Yeah.
We need one more B though for alliteration.
Banter, bullshit, and backstory.
I was going to say bitches, but okay, either one works. Either one I'm not going to put in the show title, but that's going to be
That's funny.
Banter, bullshit, backstory.
Yeah. I could put banter, BS, and backstory. I
There
would
you
do
go.
that. Yeah. Let me write that down here.
That's what you got to do sometimes. You got to BS your way through it.
Yes. So I want to circle back, Chris, to your adventure that you ran. What, and I don't want to do any spoilers or anything because we may indeed go visit it again. But what would you say would be one of the next steps in that? So I'm gonna do what I remember as a recap, and anyone help me out here. But at the end, we're back at this guy's place, and we start to hear commotion outside, and there's fighting, and we don't know what's going on, and we hear them get out there and fight or whatever it is. We look outside, people are getting killed. We turn back. And the guy whose kid we rescued falls face first with a dagger through his throat.
Yep.
I think it was through his throat. And she's standing there and says, "Let them eat dirt."
Right.
And then we're like, "All right, let's say bye now." Like, fuck no. Right? I think we all had that
Shit just got
feeling at
real.
that point.
That's what I
right?
wanted, though. You know.
So without necessarily letting out spoilers, where would you see that the characters going next? What should the characters have been doing based on what you anticipated?
I thought about it a little bit. It could be one of the, like, if we revisit that again, yeah, do we play it out where, like, that elemental comes blasting through the door and you guys got to deal with it, and the girl's either, stays there and does something or leaves? Or do I have it where you guys are recovering after this great battle with this rock elemental, and that's how the next part of the story goes, and that's however I want to break it off next. I kind of didn't really figure it out, like what I want to do.
I have no quarry with the rock elemental though.
Yeah, that's
He said that before we started recording. I thought
He
it was
did.
gone.
No, it came back.
He had to
I
dig
never
that
let a
one
good
back
joke
up.
lie.
So because one of my thoughts with that was, my next thought was, the picture in my mind was all four of the characters are going to jump at this girl, grab her, hold her down, and find out what the F is going on.
Yeah.
Right? That was my thought of what was about to happen. We were going to find out, because I don't think any of us were about to kill her immediately. Because I think except for Bree, shoot her in the knee or in the neck. But I would want to know what the heck's going on. What is this? And my character Cows would have probably just tried to tackle her and find out what the heck's going on. What do you guys, the other players, what do you think?
Well, yeah, do you have a grander vision of how she fits into a larger picture? Or
not a ton. I mean, I probably would work it out. Like if I wanted to start it out right from that ending, I would, I'd have the rock elemental come blasting in, and you guys would have to fight it. But the girl would escape. I would use her later. She would take over the coven, and that would be a part of the campaign, either immediately later or a lot later. I would have depending on what I wanted to do.
Mickie, what did you think was coming up next? Say we had continued. What was the next part of the story in your mind?
Should have knocked an arrow and shot the bitch.
Yeah.
Period.
and all that commotion going on outside when we see it's the earth elemental.
There's evil in the room with me, and there's an unknown evil outside. I'm going to take care of what's in the room first, and then worry about what's outside.
Yeah.
Cool.
Pragmatic.
What's fun about that starter set is I like the idea that we can come back to it, and so she could escape, go underground. The coven goes underground; they disappear.
Right.
Like, they're not gone, but we're not going to find them.
Right.
And so, we get hired off on another adventure, or we go do something
Right.
totally
Totally.
different.
Yep.
Heck,
And
we
then-
could go back to Phandelver and follow another side.
Yeah,
Or you go to
Exactly.
another town, you the same thing. Well, these people are dying. They have dirt in their mouth. Like, the
Yeah,
we've seen this
arises
before.
again.
I mean, I
Yeah.
can't
Like, oh,
remember.
crap,
but
let's do something different.
Yeah,
we're
right.
still only
We're
level
even.
5
Yeah.
adventurers, so I mean, we're not even close to epic adventurers. So we go back to Phandelver, check on our mines, and something happens down in the mines, and then you've got a whole other adventure. Or we go to it's not Waterdeep that's close. What is
Neverwinter.
Neverwinter. Go up to Neverwinter, and something happens there. So I like that, and I like having that in our back pocket if we need to come up with a day or two of recording, because the characters, even though we didn't create them, I find them all amusing enough to definitely play with.
Yeah. What did you think was going to happen next?
I thought we were going to go back to the town and do more in there, like find out more what Willem's all about. And
Yeah, I was actually bummed when he got shanked because I thought
I got shanked.
I could actually see a whole adventure or backstory or him being a big kind of integral part of something.
Well,
That
still, like, that could be an adventure finding out
Could
what
be
he's
finding
about.
out.
there's now a
Absolutely.
power vacuum in.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, right. And there's the whole thing,
Absolutely.
like why did she kill her father? That
Absolutely.
mystery still hanging out.
And my question is, God made dirt, so dirt don't hurt. So why is the
Yeah.
dirt?
But if it's in your mouth, the 5-second rule's gone, man.
That's
It's
true.
like it's
Yeah.
5 hour, 5
Five,
year,
yeah.
5 lifetime rule,
a couple weeks maybe.
a couple week rule.
And how do you counter it? By putting compost in there, or what?
I'm trying to think.
Some
What would
water,
you
I
do?
don't know.
That'd
And
be
you've
mud.
got mud.
then. Let
Yeah.
them eat mud.
Yeah.
It doesn't have the
Goes down a
same
little
ring.
easier.
We'll just get Helga at them. Helga clean it up.
I don't know about Helga yet. Something to look forward to.
Spoilers.
Spoilers. Oh, hey, what?
Spoiler.
Well, that's only if you've got dirt on your boot.
That's true.
Right. So that would be it.
Maids and whatnot.
And I think with that, we're going to be wrapping up this sidebar. Hopefully, you enjoyed our banter, BS, and backstory. And stay tuned. We're going to have the Strahd episodes up for you starting next week. You'll be able to get some video with that, and we will attempt to be entertaining once again. Sorry, JJ, I didn't have it running for this.
Yeah.
You'll have
I definitely
to
want
do
to hear
finger
more
guns
from
on
the
the
fans.
next
Though. We need more fan response on
definitely.
any medium you're using,
Yes.
whether it's good or bad. Like, don't be afraid to like crush us if you don't like what's going on. Yeah,
Specifically, Chris. I mean,
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, I don't care.
That makes us
I
better
would love for
players.
my soul to turn into a diamond.
that would be pretty cool. Is it made of coal now?
No, but then you'd be like one of
Coal
those
soul?
like wussy vampires on the Twilight
Sparkling,
thing. You'd
yeah.
be all sparkly, and then you'd be all emo, and I couldn't hang out with you.
I mean, better than dirt burning up and turning into sun. Like, I hate that I get sunburned so badly.
I know.
He can't go out in the daylight anyway.
It's like day glow.
Ain't no day walker.
All right.
All right. Well, thanks for listening, everyone. We're glad you're here.
Still here.
Well, Kurt,
Hopefully.
you look really glad that they're here.
I am glad.
Well, that they can't really tell right now. Okay, we'll just say,
Bye, everyone.
Bye, everyone.
Hasta luego.
I gotta find the stop button. Let's see if I can.
There it is.
Bye.
Goodbye.
Penis.
Pasta mignon.
Fart noises? What the fuck? Are we like 3?
Yes.
The preceding podcast was brought to you by One Joe Young. You can find us online at adventuresfromtheshed.com.